That is more what following Christ is all about. And yet what we see is Paul's not complaining. He's not saying God's not fair to me and it's just not right that all these bad things are happening to me. He just continues to go on. And you don't see James or anyone really complaining either, because they knew something that will change our life drastically when we get it. Here it is. For me to live is Christ and to die is gain. We don't get that here. I don't know why it is, but we are so bent on loving this world. Ted Decker wrote a book called The Slumber of Christianity, Awakening a Passion for Heaven on Earth. And when I was doing this lesson, as I was reading what he had to say, I was thinking, you know what? I think this is why the death of James got one verse, and this is why. James wins by dying. See, we don't like to think that way. It's sad for those who are still left on the earth. But they understood something that you and I need to get to live really honestly is Christ. The minute we make our life about Jesus, then we know that to die is gain, because we will spend eternity with him. But the problem is we're so attached to this world. And the reason for it, I think, is because we cannot fathom heaven. Nobody can tell us exactly what it's like. We hear about streets of gold and we think about, Jesus going to make us a home. But it seems a mystery. We don't understand it, especially if you're doing Revelation with us. We see this amazing picture of heaven and what's going on up there, and we can't even fathom it. And so it scares us. And so we hang on to this earth because we don't want to go there because we don't understand it. Brian Jones, in his book, Second Guessing God, his last chapter is called Heaven. He talks about when he used to teach junior high kids, and he went to all the kids one day, and he was talking about heaven, and he said, "What do you think heaven's going to be like, Josh?" And Josh answers this, "I think it's going to be stupid, and I don't want to go there." Now, if we're being honest, I'm assuming that most of us have thought that too. Now, I'm only because we can't picture what it's going to be like. And all we see are pictures of, little angels on harps with harps on clouds, and we're like, that just doesn't work for me, okay? So in our mind, we don't understand it. And I think, what are we going to do all day? And most people think, am I going to be bored? What goes on in heaven? I want to play soccer. I want to watch TV. I want to go on a cruise. I want to go to the ocean. For me, it's I want to work. I want to teach Bible. I want to study. I want to learn about God. All that I won't need to do any of that once we get to heaven, which is awesome. But before we started back, Rob and I we were able to go to Cancun for a week, and he looked at me and he said, "Why don't you not take your computer?" Which means you can't study for 7 days. And I almost had a heart attack, okay? And I said, "Well, you're really cute, and I do want to sit there and stare at you, but I don't want to stare at you like all day, okay? So let's play cards and we'll swim and do all the things that we're supposed to do, but I need to bring my computer because that terrifies me to not have something to do." And so when you talk about heaven, you go, what do we do up there? I don't really know. Can I do something? And then people will say, well, you'll just worship God all day. Now, there's no one that loves Jesus more than me. Well, maybe, but I love Jesus, and I'm so grateful for my salvation that I get to go to heaven, and that is worth praising and worshiping God forever. I get that, but I don't understand that here. I can't focus for 15 minutes at church at a worship song. They sing, I'm just like looking around, I'm thinking, what am I have for lunch? And I'm trying, and all these people are raising their hands, and I'm like, I'm the worst Christian in the world. And this just goes on, and I'm like, how can I can't worship for 15 minutes. How am I going to worship for like eternity? I don't understand it. Those are the reasons why I think we don't really deal with heaven very well. Brian was so shocked that he finally asked Josh, Josh, what is your deal on this? And he said, what makes heaven so great? Here's what Brian said. As I stumbled for a fitting response, he said, the students sitting there that morning saw right through me. Everyone knew that Josh had stumped the teacher. It wasn't that I didn't know most of the correct theological answers. I just hadn't lived long enough to believe them myself. There was no longing in my voice to show my students that I looked forward to going to heaven after my bumbling response having appeared a lot like Joshua described it. It was 20 years ago. A lot has happened since then, so I'm going to take a do-over and take one more shot at answering it. And what we're going to talk about for the rest of this time that we have together is how awesome heaven will be because of the things that heaven will not have in it. We are so used to the bad things happening. We are so used to turning on the news and seeing terrorism and seeing car crashes and seeing bad things happening to children and all of these things happen. We just think it's normal. And yet what we have to remember that the bad stuff shouldn't be normal. You're going to never, ever come back to Bible study when I tell you this, and you would be right to not. But I realized this when we went to Flagstaff. The kids were getting ready to come up, and how many of us are immune to I17 in that road, and how many accidents are on that stupid road getting to Flagstaff? And we're there, we're waiting for our kids, and one of them called and said, yeah, there's an accident. It'll be hours before we get there. Not once did I even stop and think to pray for the people who were in the accident. I'm just more annoyed. I just want the accident. Hurry up, clear the accident because I need my kids up in Flagstaff. I should go to hell for that, honestly. Like, that's the worst thing in the whole world. And I thought, what is wrong with me? Why didn't it even occur to me my first thing to pray for those people who were in the accident? And I realized that it's because we are so immune to bad stuff, we just think it's normal. Here's what we know. We forget that the bad stuff shouldn't be normal. Here's the good thing about heaven. It's maybe normal for this earth, but never, ever normal for heaven. Here's what we need to know as we're living on this earth. Romans 8:22 says this, for we know that the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now. We have to realize that bad things happen in this world because the earth is groaning. God never created it that way. He created it to be perfect. But then when sin came into the world and it snowballed, and that's why sin just has a heyday now. Here's my question. Why are we so attached to a world that's groaning and our bodies are aching? I sat down the other night to staple those lessons, and I couldn't even hardly get up. Okay, I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like everything's aches and it's hard to stand up and to get out of bed and walk. I'm just like, what's wrong? The world is groaning and things are just changing. So I want to take the rest of the time and say why the early Christians only gave one verse about James. And I think it's because they knew something. They knew that James got the best end of the deal.